Hi, Accelerated Algebra. Here's your practice progress check, and we're just going to go over the answers to make sure you understand all of these completely. This first one, you're identifying transformations. So remember, this is in vertex form, where we've got f of x equals a times x minus h squared plus k, and the vertex is at hk. So here the vertex is 2, 5. Which means this has transformed up 5. Now this is a little bit tricky because remember the minus is part of the formula. So this doesn't go left 5, but it goes right 5. And then this minus, remember instead of opening up, that makes it open down. So this is a reflection. So you should have chosen right 2, reflect over the x-axis, and up 5. Those were the 3 from the list. Question number 2. It says to find the vertex, and is it a maximum or minimum? This is not in vertex form, so we've got to use our formula. Negative b over 2a, that's our axis of symmetry. So negative b, and the b is a negative 4, making that a positive 4. X equals 1 is my axis of symmetry, and I'm going to plug that in to find the y value of the vertex. So this has a positive a, which means this opens up. It's going to look like this. So my vertex here of 1, negative 1 is going to be a minimum. 1, negative 1, minimum. Okay, on planet Z, an alien jumps off a 4-meter platform. Her jump is modeled by this function. Notice we've got a negative a, which means that this is going to open down. Just looking at this function, I can see that the y-intercept is 4. And this is asking me, after how many seconds will the alien land? So I want to know this time when the alien lands over here. That means the height is 0. So I'm going to take my function, I'm going to write 0 equals negative x squared plus 3x plus 4, and solve from here. You could do the quadratic formula. You could do factoring for this one. These are my 2 x-intercepts. The one that works here is the 4, or 4, 0. This is the point here, negative 1, 0. The one that we care about is this 4 seconds. You could have also solved this with the quadratic formula. That would have worked. You could have completed the square, either of those, but you need 4 seconds. Okay, same setup, but a different question. In your notebook, show the calculations to find the maximum height. So just remember again what our graph looked like. It looked like this. And now we want to know this maximum height. That happens at the vertex. So again, we're going to have to use this x equals negative b over 2a, which means my axis of symmetry right here is this line x equals 1.5. Now to find the y-coordinate of the vertex, here's the vertex, 1.5, 6.25. So the x is the time, so that's going to go here in the time slot. This should be 1.5, and the maximum height should be 6.25 meters. This one you've got to match the graphs with the equations. So the other graphs are on a different page, so let's just talk about this graph letter A. And maybe we'll label these with their transformation. So this one's going to open down, right? And it's also going to be left 2 from y equals x squared. That's our parent function. So of course we're comparing everything to this graph here, y equals x squared. Okay, so we know this one's opening down because it's reflected and it's gone left 2. This is going to be a vertical stretch by 3 and also down 2. So we're looking for that. This one is going to go right 2, and this is down 2. Okay, this one is not in vertex form, so it's a little bit harder to see. I bet I could just factor out, though, a negative 2x even. And then I would just get x plus 1. That's still not vertex form, but what I can see is the x-intercepts are x equals 0, and x equals negative 1 are my x-intercepts. And I know that this one's also going to open down. Okay, which equation matches this graph A? Well, I can see it's moved to the right 2, and it has moved, or I can't see it's moved to the right 2, but I can see it's moved to the right and down. So this must go with 3. So number 3 must be letter A. Okay, this graph is B, C, and D. I've got 2 that open down. This one has 0 as an x-intercept. This does not have 0 as an x-intercept. So I know that this has to match with B. This one looks like it's been reflected and then moved to the left. That has to match with number 1, so that's C. And then we hope the D matches up here. Yes, this looks skinnier than y equals x squared, and it's been moved down too. So this one must be D. Okay, writing this in vertex form. So this is completing the square. I'm going to take f of x equals x squared minus 8x. I'm going to put my 2 over here. Now I'm going to take this, divide it by 2, which gives me negative 4. This is 2 times negative 4, and then this must be negative 4 squared. So what I'm going to do is add 16. But then if I add 16 to really keep this the same, I have to subtract 16 also. So then remember, you kind of want to do this part together and this part together. Because this first part I can write as x minus 4 squared. And then here I've got negative 16 plus 2, and that's going to give me negative 14. Question 7. Solve by completing the square. Type to show your work. So hopefully you played around and figured out how to type some math. If you can't figure out how to use the School G math stuff, you can always just write this as 3 plus or minus square root QRT7, and I'll know what that means. The School G thing does have a way for you to do math, but if you can't quite figure that out, that's fine. Okay, but this one, that's not the answer here. That was just an example. So I've got x squared plus 10x. I'm going to move my 14 to this side, so it's a minus 14. Now I'm going to divide this by 2 and square, so I get 25. If I add 25 to that side, I add 25 to that side. This is different than our problem from before, because up on this problem, we really had to add 16 and then subtract it off so that we didn't add anything at all. And here, what I've done is I've just added 25 to both sides. Both keep us balanced and don't change our values. Well, this will change the value, but it keeps it balanced. The other one doesn't change the value. All right, so x plus 5 squared equals 11. Then I'm going to take the square root of both sides. I've got x plus 5 equals the square root of 11. That'll be a plus minus, so x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 11. Okay. For these, you've got to match up a characterization of the discriminant. So this has only one x-intercept, which means that when you did this quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So remember, this part is the discriminant. If this is 0, you end up with just one solution. That's what has happened here. This is the discriminant is 0, letter C. This has 2 solutions, which means what's in the discriminant was a positive number so that we could have 2 solutions. So this is A, the discriminant is positive. This, and I'll write down, this is 2 x-intercepts. So I know the discriminant is positive. Here, there are no x-intercepts, which means when we tried to solve this equation, we got a negative number under the square root, a negative discriminant. So this is B. All right, this is just to solve straight with the quadratic formula. Make sure that you set equal to 0. So you've got A equals 2, B equals negative 3, C equals negative 1. Now, it's fine if you use a calculator to do this to the nearest tenth. This says round to the nearest tenth. Great. Last one. This says to find all x-intercepts. So remember, the x-intercepts are where y equals 0. You're welcome to use a quadratic formula for this, or factor. Do whatever method you want. I'll show both quadratic formula and factoring. This is an example of what we were talking about before. This becomes a square root of 0, which means there's only one solution to this equation. Let's do this by factoring as well. I'm going to multiply everything by negative 1 first. Now, you might see right off the bat that this is a perfect square trinomial, but suppose you didn't. I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to make 9, because 9 times 1, and add to make negative 6. That's got to be negative 3 and negative 3. And then we group. You'll notice that the factors are both the same. They both give us the solution, x equals 1/3. Awesome, great job. Your real progress check will happen on Thursday. So if you understand these problems, you're in great shape.